You're listening to the NABS Now podcast, brought to you by the National Association of Blind Students, a proud division of the National Federation of the Blind.
Hey everyone, you're listening to the NABS Now podcast. I'm your host Nina, and today we're going to be talking about a really interesting topic. We're going to be discussing the process of coming to the decision of whether or not to attend blindness skills training. For anyone who doesn't know, blindness skills training is a specific program that are offered at several NFB training centers across the United States, and it focuses on building life skills such as travel, home management, technology, woodshop, braille, and then some other things mixed in as well. We'll get into all of that and what it all means and how you can come to this very important decision in this episode.
Hi, my name is Erin Daring. I'm originally from Maryland, and I went to training at the Louisiana Center for the Blind.
Hello, my name is Gene Kim. I serve on the NABS board. I live and go to school in California, and I went to training at the Colorado Center of the Blind from March till September of this year. So fairly recent.
Hi, my name is Ammar Tarin. I live in Gilbert, Arizona. I'm going to be starting school in January, going to Northern Arizona University, and I went to Blind Incorporated.
I'm really excited that all of you guys are here, and I'm really excited that we are able to represent all three NFB training centers. So, as you guys know, today's episode is going to be about the decision process for going to training. So I'm going to start out with kind of a general question. When or why did you first consider going to blindness skills training?
So, when I was first introduced to the NFB back in 2014, and I went to my very first national convention, of course, in the exhibit hall, all the training centers are represented in the exhibit hall. And at the time, I was actually considering CCB, and then I had several friends who were a graduate of LCB try to get me to go for years, and it took a while. And then back in 2015, I did a little training at a local training center in Maryland that summer, and then in the fall winter time I got hit by a car, and that is when things started getting shaky for me. I lost a lot of confidence in traveling and crossing streets, and still it took me several years to get to the point. But when I was struggling in school and felt like I can't move forward, so I took a step back to just figure out some things, and talking with some other friends who had graduated from the center, I decided it was time to do training.
I had actually attended CCB summer program in, I think, 2019, and I really enjoyed the experience. So I knew that's what I wanted to do after I graduated high school and before I started college. So I started looking into the different training centers that I wanted to go to, and it eventually got narrowed down to CCB and Blind Inc. So I had heard a lot about Blind Inc. from a few of my friends, like Josh Olakani. So he was like one of the main people that I guess convinced me to go. So it was just something I'd always wanted to do before starting college, just because I wanted to have those skills, before I went to college and moved out of the house.
So my journey in terms of deciding to go to training, I first heard about it similar to Erin at an NFB convention, my first one in 2019, where I was a scholarship winner. And it seemed like this really, really great opportunity. Like, oh my gosh, like you get to learn how to cook for yourself, how to travel, and all these different things. A lot of different skills that I wasn't super confident in just because I hadn't had the experience of really practicing those as someone living independently. But it seemed like a very big commitment, right? Because I was dead set on going to college on time. I wanted to graduate in 4 years, and it just seemed like I didn't have time to go to training. But 2020 happened, the COVID pandemic happened, and I suddenly found myself with a year off. And then I just by chance happened to go to the NFB of Texas convention again, and kind of remembered that the training centers are a thing. This is, back in 2020. So from there, I got re-interested in attending in the training center, and then I narrowed it down to CCB and LCB. And for me, my process looked like asking a lot of the graduates what their experience was. So I had a long period of time where I was cold calling people, thanks to the network of NFB and NABS folks who referred me to different people. And I went back and forth a lot, but I ultimately decided on CCB just because I think it suited what I was looking for more personally, and I can definitely get more into that later. But that's a kind of an overview of my selection process.
So I think you guys kind of touched on this, but I'm still going to ask just in case you have any other comments. Like, who, if anyone, helped you make the decision to go to training?
For me, a couple people that helped me make this decision were Katie Olson and Justin Salisbury, especially Justin, because every year since I met him in 2014, and every single year at convention, he told me that I should go to training, and I just put it off. So between those two, they really helped, and I remember talking to Justin, and for a really long time one day, he was just like, I think you should go to training. This was on a Saturday, and then I called that following Monday. And so I decided to go to LCB because I grew up in a really metropolitan area, and I was so used to taking buses and trains, and I wanted something different. And I knew that LCB did so much walking, and I was super terrified about that because I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to make you walk so much, which also was why I wanted to not go to LCB, but then made the decision to go to LCB because of all the walking. So it would really force me to get out of that comfort zone and to conquer my fear of crossing streets that I avoided back at home. And this was of January of 2020, so it was a crazy time.
Yeah, I was in training during that time the pandemic hit. It definitely was eventful.
Oh, yeah.
So, obviously everyone kind of has their personal reasons for choosing their centers, so instead of kind of getting into those, I kind of want to know more about why did you all choose an NFB center? Obviously our centers have some differences in location and things like that. Sometimes parts of their program are slightly different, but they all have the same overarching philosophy and use of structured discovery. So I'm kind of curious why you guys chose to train in that way.
Yeah, I can share my thoughts on that. For me, in 2019, that's when I first discovered what the NFB was and really got exposed to very positive blindness philosophy. And I really, really, really felt empowered by that. I really was inspired to do my best. I really gained a lot of confidence in myself, just in life generally. And I definitely knew that, if I wanted to continue growing in my confidence and my competence, if you will, as a blind person, then I wanted to be around NFB. Like as much NFB exposure I can get was going to be good. And just comparing, the options to other training centers locally, I thought the amount of rigor and the amount of intensiveness, I guess, of the programs at the NFB centers seemed incomparable to the other ones I was considering, because all of them operate under that kind of philosophy. I really wanted to be very immersed in that for 6 to 9 months. So that's why I chose NFB centers.
Similar to what Gina had said, I also wanted to add that, like I said, that I went to one of my state's training center for a few months. And what was so easy about that is that I was in the same state. Like, I was close to my mom. I was like an hour away. So my mom could still do so much for me if she wanted to deliver groceries for me, if she wanted, do anything for me, because I know she would. She did that when I was in school 45 minutes away, and it was just easy access. And I felt like it was harder to be challenged being so close. And so having the options of, there are 3 centers and they're all across the state, and I'm not from any of those states, either which way I decided to go to which center, I knew I would have been challenged by being out of my comfort zone. So that also helped make the decision to go to an NFB training center for me.
So I feel like for me, it's like pretty similar to both. So I'd like kind of been around the NFB like since I was maybe like 9 or 10, because my sister and my mom were involved basically most of that. So I had always heard about those 3 training centers. And then when it was like time for me to think about whether or not I wanted to go, I wanted to get out of the state, because I knew, like, since I'm going to college somewhere, like, even though it's in-state, it's, 3 or 4 hours away maybe. So I wanted to get that experience of living away from family, just to stay away and I guess learn on my own. So yeah, that's pretty much it, I guess. Edit out after that.
No,
Yeah.
that all makes sense. I know, like, for me, when I went to training, I honestly went for the simple fact that my state, while we do have a lot of good programs, our travel programs are severely different than structured discovery. I know some states are like slowly working it in, but we haven't even started that yet where I live. And so, like, I understood that the way that training is done in my state, or the way that lessons are given, with the high caseloads, and it's not structured discovery at all. It's completely opposite. I knew it didn't work for me, but I also knew that I could eventually be a lot more comfortable, specifically with cane skills. I just had like a kind of a gut feeling that I needed something different. And that even comes down to like the kinds of canes we use, right? Like people in my state, even other blind people who maybe aren't like NFB affiliated or haven't done training, they look at me with a straight cane like I'm crazy. Like, it's really funny. Even some like travel instructors here are like, oh, like, why do you use that? It doesn't fold. And like, it's just funny because different things work for different people. And I always say that, like, I totally wish I would have discovered that style of travel, as stressful as it can be, like, earlier on in my life, because it probably would have saved me a lot of years of feeling like I couldn't, be a confident or competent traveler. My next question is kind of a little bit of a different take. How did you explain your choice to go to training to those close to you? And kind of the things that go along with that. I know that personally, a misconception that I dealt with a lot was that I was already super independent, because I already lived on my own majority of the time, and I already was in school, like in college, and I had a lot of other things going on, and like people did not understand why I would feel like I wanted to improve on my skills.
I definitely relate to that, Nina, because I did live on my own for a while, and outwardly, people were like, oh, you're really independent, and that, why do you need this? But also, I mean, first I had to come to a conclusion that I needed it first, obviously. And then, like, I remember telling my mom way back in 2014, but I also just didn't know if I was going to do it or not. And so, it was just coming to the point where I had to explain on terms of what one, like, a sighted person would, like, understand why I need it in simplest term, like as if they're a toddler trying to explain something like that, because they're just thinking like, oh, you just go out and you do, and they're just like so proud of me, and it's like really weird. And at that time, like, I used my cane, but also there were moments where I didn't use my cane. as much. So it's kind of going flip-flop and just having to just really have that confidence. And especially after my accident, I knew that I needed to be confident in everything I did. And with all the different skills, not even just travel and technology, those were like the two biggest things that I was like, technology and travel. And the other stuff were like, I was blown away afterwards, especially with home management, because and my mom was like, oh, like you're good. Like, I mean, I think that you'll be fine. There are certain things that I wouldn't touch. Like, I wouldn't touch meat unless it was like ground beef. I wouldn't touch raw chicken because I was like, gross. That is disgusting, and I don't want to touch that.
I just didn't want to kill anyone.
Yeah, right.
But, you know, just like slowly like working on those things, and, you know, I was like, oh my gosh. And I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I just touched raw chicken to make curry chicken. Like, it's no big deal. Okay. Like, it's all right. It's cool. So I'm like very thankful for each and every class. Braille was one of the big things because I didn't grow up learning Braille because I'm a high partial. And a lot of times when you're a high partial, they just, just large print, and that is more strenuous. And so wanting to learn Braille, I finally got to learn Braille, and that was really exciting.
So for me, it wasn't too difficult explaining to at least, you know, my family. There were some like mixed feelings about it. It's like most of my family were fine with it, but then you had a few people that were just like, yeah, you know, why do you have to go? It's so long. But like explaining to them that like it's something I need if I want to be able to, you know, move on with my life and go to college and start working soon. I feel like it became a lot easier for them to understand that it's something I have to do.
Yeah, definitely. Similar to Ammar, actually. My family, thankfully, was very open and encouraging when I brought it up to them. But, you know, the conversation, I still had to justify and kind of explain to them, you know, my thoughts about why I wanted to go. And I essentially just kind of gave them the whole scoop about what this training program was, the different classes that, you know, would be offered, the different skills I would be gaining. I'd be, you know, learning how to cook for myself so that I can live independently and have, you know, a larger option of internship locations or job locations because, you know, I don't have to be close to home or anything. Travel skills, like I want to be able to have even more confidence to travel sort of wherever I want and even on campus. So gaining more confidence in actually, you know, in terms of more immediate benefits, that was also a big, reasoning that I use with my family. And one other thing that I used also that was a little bit more specific, I guess, to my time and place was, hey, like the pandemic is happening. Like, I think this is going to be the best use of my time. Like, when am I going to have another chance to kind of put my life on pause and go to training to really gain all these skills? And also, you know, one thing that the training centers do offer when, you know, they have instructors is a woodshop program. And I'm thinking about majoring in mechanical engineering still, and a big component, at least at the bare minimum of the major, is to work with different manufacturing tools. And because these different training centers have that structured discovery where your task is to figure out how to, you know, use these different machines, you know, with guidance, of course, but in a very safe environment. It's like, this is the best opportunity I'm going to have, best time and place for me to be able to learn how to use these different machines to be successful in school too. So for a lot of different reasons, I was able to kind of work through each of them with my parents, and they were very encouraging about it. So it was very, very fortunate.
I would also like to add, like, a lot of what I told people in, like, the simplest terms is that I have to take this step back to move forward in whatever I'm going to do. So for me, originally, I was going to take the step back from school, go to training to move forward, to continue on to school. And I guess I'll touch on this later. I actually did not go back to school, but finding a job or whatever have you, if it's going back to school or finding a job, whatever you need to do to move forward back into like your normal life and be successful as a blind person.
Okay, what advice would you want to give to someone who is maybe still in the process of debating if they want to go to blindness skills training or not?
Do it as as soon as you can. And always just like, if you have any questions, I know each of the directors will be willing to just talk with you. I remember being really, really nervous calling Pam that Monday. I was like, oh my gosh, oh goodness, oh my word. I don't know if I can do this. And for me, when I was talking to Pam that very first time, it felt like I was the only one that is existing. And it was really, really reassuring because, you know, training, when you start that process for training, and what I always tell people, it is a very vulnerable time in your life. And you open up a lot, and it can be really, really hard to open up a lot. But your instructors and the director there, they care for you, and they want the best for you, and that's why they're there. So it's okay. So be willing, be open, and if you have any questions, I mean, you're listening to this podcast right now, and there's so many people who have already gone through training, and just seek advice there. The other thing that I'll say, when you do get there, this is really, really hard, and you're probably going to hear this a lot. I say probably, you will hear this a lot. Do not compare yourself to anybody else there. Everybody comes in with different skill sets and different levels, but you cannot compare yourself to, if you come in at the same time with somebody else, you cannot compare yourself. Oh, they're further along in travel or further along in technology or home management or shop or Braille. Because I didn't know Braille, or I knew very, very little Braille before coming into training. And then there are people who knew Braille their whole life. And it's hard, but try not to get sucked into that trap.
Yeah, that's so true. Definitely. The only frame of reference that you can really compare yourself to is just yourself from the past. Anything else is going to put you in the gap, as Benjamin Hardy would say. So my advice would just be, if you're on the fence about it at all, my inclination is that you either know you need training or know you want training. But there's some logistical barrier or some, set of excuses that are kind of preventing you from, being tipped off the edge. And for me, well, for the longest time, it was just because, I don't want to go because I think it would be a logistical hassle to fit into my, 4-year college, like right after high school plan. I think the benefits of training, really before training and after training, there's such a big difference in your life, or at least in my life, where I did fine in college. I'd finished my first year of undergrad before I decided to go to training. And that year was fine. I was able to travel to my classes independently. I had dorm food, so I didn't need to cook, and I was fine. But I knew that I could be doing better. I wanted to not just kind of get through and survive, but I really wanted to thrive. And I knew that training would be transformative enough just by, hearing other people talk about it and getting to know just all of the great things and experiences that they've gone through just by going to training. So I think if you really want to be a more confident person and really thrive, I don't think you're going to regret it. I don't think you're going to regret the decision to go to training. It might just take some extra planning and things like that. But in my opinion, I think everyone should very seriously consider training. And if there are reasons that you're on the fence about it, maybe, I don't know, try to reevaluate those reasons and see how much, I guess, how much they hold up to, you not going, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so kind of just to add on to that, if you're thinking about it, but you think there's something holding you back, I feel well, for me, it's what I did is I I contacted either people I knew who worked at the center or just the executive director in general when I had my first interview to think about if I actually wanted to go. I talked to them because for me it was school, because I wanted to start school as soon as possible, and they'll be able to give you some sort of advice or something just so you can figure things out a lot more and think about more if you want to go or not.
Also, 6 to 9 months is really short in the grand scheme of things. It may seem long, but it is short. And so that's the other thing that I would like to add, because we all freak out, especially when we get out of high school. We're like, no, because I didn't know about training until after I graduated high school. And so when I already was planning to start college, I'm like, I just want to finish up school before I go to training. And sometimes, it actually is really much needed to go to training in the middle of school.
Yeah, I did that.
So it's okay. There are plenty of people who've done it. When I talked to one of my friends, she did the same thing. And sometimes it also means that you may even transfer schools if you decide to go back, depending on the circumstances, because training really does change you. So remember, 6 to 9 months is not as long as you think it is.
Thank you guys so much for all of your input. As stated on this episode, please feel free to reach out to anyone who has gone to training, including the directors of our wonderful NFB centers. We would all be more than happy to talk to you and to help you all come to this very important decision. And we wish you all the best of luck with your training journey. Talk to you guys next time on the Nabs Now podcast.